Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Welcome to another episode of Haqiqatjou, where we discuss religion and politics, the two least controversial subjects. As always, I am your host, Daniel Haqiqatjou, and we have a great episode for you today. Speaking about a variety of topics, a variety of news items, and inshallah, it's going to be a good show. You'll have to excuse me, my voice is a little bit hoarse. I caught a slight cold from my toddler, so that's why I might sound a little bit hoarse for the show, but hopefully you can understand. As always, I'm going to be looking at the chat, inshallah, so any comments that you have, please put them in the chat. And if you want me to read your comment, as long as it's relevant, you can submit a super chat. The super chat is really helpful for our show. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. You can find the link to join our newsletter in the description below the video. And this helps us keep in touch with you as needed, inshallah. So, how have you guys been doing? Hopefully you've had a good past couple of weeks. If you were with us last week, we had a great interview with one of the former members of the Taliban government. That was a very interesting discussion, and I learned a lot. It was quite eye-opening, the topics that he discussed. We talked about Khilafah, we talked about jihad, we talked about the future of the Ummah, and I asked him some, you could say tough questions, and I think it was a great conversation. So make sure to check out the previous episode number 53 of Haqiqatjou, if you haven't already. And we're going to continue to have good guests, interesting guests. If you have a request for a certain guest that you would like me to discuss or interview, feel free to put that in the chat or in the comments, inshallah. So what is the topic today that we want to address? Mainly, I want to talk about this incident that happened last Friday, at one of the local masajid in Houston. And this was a situation where a Muslim woman, a Muslim protester, hijabi Muslimah, was handcuffed by the police and was almost arrested by the police. And what was she protesting? She was protesting a politician who was speaking after the Jummah prayer, after the Friday prayer, basically campaigning, asking the Muslim community to vote for him in the upcoming mayoral election for one of these cities around in the greater Houston area. This is called Sugarland. And a lot of Muslims live in Sugarland, a lot of halal restaurants, groceries, businesses in Sugarland. It's probably one of the wealthier Muslim communities in the United States, and they have many very large masajid. And this was one of the large masajid, and it seems like the masjid board was prioritizing one mayoral candidate, the one that spoke, over others. And it turns out that what the protester, this hijabi protester, was claiming, she was protesting this candidate speaking. Why? Because he has demonstrated pro-Zionist, pro-Israel, and anti-Palestinian views in his record, in his political record. So we want to talk about exactly what happened, the reaction from the masjid, and the implications for the Houston Muslim community. And you might ask, well, Daniel, I'm not in Houston. Maybe I'm not even in the United States. Why do I even care about this issue? And it's important because it is a microcosm of exactly the same dynamics and the same problems that we are suffering from as an ummah. As an ummah, when it comes to how to organize for Palestine how to effectively counter Zionism and counter Israel's attempt to subjugate and oppress and kill Muslims around the world, not just in Palestine, not just in the Middle East, but in the entire Muslim world. So this is a microcosm, because ultimately, especially if you're the majority of Muslims in the world who are not living in the Middle East, you might think, oh, we live in a democracy, we live in Europe, we live in America, we live in South Africa, we live in Malaysia or wherever. We don't have these kinds of dictators or tyrants that are bought and paid for by Zionists who are going to suppress us as a local Muslim population. And the reason that the Muslims of the Middle East are not able to stop the genocide in Palestine is because these tyrants are controlled by, these tyrants in the Middle East, these are controlled by Zionists. They're controlled by American and Zionist interests, and therefore they prevent Muslims from taking action to stop a genocide of Muslims. That's the kind of logic that many of us around the world have. But what we don't realize is that the same mechanisms that are used to control the Muslims of the Middle East, in the Middle East and the Arab world and elsewhere, those same mechanisms exist throughout the entire globe. They exist in a smaller form, in a less obvious form throughout the entire world. And even at the local level, at your local masjid, you might not realize it, but the people who are running, many of the people, not all, not every masjid, but many of the major organizations, the major masajid, they are also controlled or influenced by the same kind of influence operation that happens at a much larger scale when we look at countries in the Middle East, for example. So these things are all connected. These things are all connected, and there's no part of the ummah that is separate from another part of the ummah. When the Prophet ﷺ compares the entire ummah to one body, and he says that if one part of the body is in pain or is suffering, the entire body suffers in pain. That you can interpret that hadith in multiple ways. One obvious interpretation is that we all feel when Palestinians are being genocided, when every day on our newsfeed we see Palestinian children with their limbs dismembered, with their just these atrocities that I don't even want to describe. We feel that pain. We are crying. We are suffering every single day, and it has a huge psychological impact. But another way to interpret that hadith is that the kinds of mechanisms that are being used for one part of the body can also be used to disable the entire body. If you handcuff the hands, okay, if you immobilize one part of the body, the entire body becomes crippled. The entire body becomes immobile. This is because we're connected in a very deep way. And the enemies of Islam have recognized this, and they understand that when you implement a certain kind of weapon against Muslims in one location, it works for Muslims everywhere. So they use this to our disadvantage. They use the fact that we are united in our psychology, in our faith, in our emotions, in our attachment to each other. They use that to our disadvantage. So, for example, historically, the colonial powers used this to great effect. When the Muslims or when the British understood how to control Muslims in the subcontinent, they used that in other parts of the world as well. They used that on their domestic Muslim population as well. When the French realized, okay, this is how we can dominate and subjugate and oppress the Muslims of Algeria in the 19th century and genocide them, these same methods can be used for Muslims outside of Algeria, Muslims in the rest of North Africa, Muslims in sub-Saharan Africa, or wherever, because they're all one body, they're all one mind, they're all one psychology, or however you want to describe it. So we can look to our local masajid, we can look to the local dynamics of what is happening right next door to understand these wider trends, these global trends. And then we have no excuse at that point. We can't point the finger at, oh, the Muslims in the Middle East, they're not doing anything for Palestine. Well, what are you doing? What am I doing for Muslims in our local situation? You're criticizing the Muslims for not doing more for Palestine to stop the genocide in the Middle East. What are you doing in your local environment, with your local masjid, with your local Muslim organization? You can go and confront these people. You can go, especially if you're living in the United States or the United Kingdom or South Africa or wherever, you can go and confront these figures. They're accessible, who are collaborating with Zionists, who are allowing Zionist infiltration. You can do that. You should do that. You should do that. And then when you don't do that, there are going to be massive negative repercussions. And we're going to talk about those when we get into that story, inshallah, later in the show. I also wanted to talk about some comments by Jordan Peterson. The meltdown of Jordan Peterson continues. He continues to destroy any kind of legacy, any kind of impact that he's had. He continues to destroy that. And Muslims have called a spade a long time ago. We called out Jordan Peterson back in 2022. Remember when he had that message to Muslims? He had a message to Muslims telling that Muslims, you need to embrace the Abraham Accords. That came out in July of 2022. And we were saying, look, this guy, and I came out with a video about that. And I said, look, Jordan Peterson, he's revealed that he is a Zionist plant. And we have to just completely disavow this Zionist. Don't follow him. Do not give him any attention. And, I was completely right about that. And then later, as soon as October 7th happens, he says, give him hell, encouraging a complete ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. Just give them hell, destroy them, destroy the Palestinians. So, Muslims knew. But people are now realizing more and more that Jordan Peterson is nothing but a Zionist plant in the Daily Wire, the Israeli Wire, as you can call it. So we're going to talk about a clip that he had recently where he's doing damage control. Jordan Peterson is doing damage control because of basically so much of the world realizing that Israel is complicit in is committing a genocide, and the United States is complicit in Israel's genocide of the Palestinians. And you see so many, a huge tidal shift in opinion in America, where the majority of people now oppose Israel and do not want the United States to support Israel. And this is a huge deal. This is bad, really bad news for Israel. That public opinion in the United States has shifted. Now we're past the halfway mark of people who oppose, Americans who oppose Israel. So we're going to talk about Jordan Peterson, damage control that he's been doing. So it should be a good show, inshallah. Before we get into the Zionist machinations in the Houston Muslim community with the masajid, one thing that annoys me that I thought I'd mention. So a couple of days ago, the Pope Francis, died. And whenever there is a figure like that who dies, you get very typical reactions from the Muslim community online. And, maybe the Muslim community online is not representative of the Ummah as a whole. But it's just very disappointing to see many of the reactions. And it's always a kind of polarization. And this polarization that I'm going to describe to you is really symptomatic of a larger problem that I'll discuss as we get to the main topic of the show, which is the Zionists' so-called masjid and their arrest of this hijabi Muslima. But the reactions are polarized, where you have one pole of these Muslims saying, you know, oh, Allah yarhamu, the Pope has died, may he rest in peace. May Allah give him the highest Jannah. May Allah forgive him and cover him in mercy. May he rest in peace. Oh, the Pope, ya Baba. This is shocking. This is shocking because we know that this is something specifically prohibited in the Quran, is prohibited in Islam, to pray for forgiveness of someone who dies as a non-Muslim, as a kafir. So they are praying for the Pope in a haram way. This is haram. And some of these people, when you press them on it, they get upset, they get angry. Why can't we pray? Why can't we make dua for the Pope? And I've talked about this in many cases over the years because it keeps happening over and over again. And there's no, it seems like, end to this kind of confusion. So we have to do our job and say that, look, no matter how much you like the Pope, no matter how much you like Shireen Abu Akleh, the Palestinian journalist, Christian Palestinian journalist who was murdered by the IDF, no matter how much you admire her or any other person, there's a certain red line that you don't cross. You don't go and cross this. This is the principle that is laid down by Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's what Islam is. And Allah says in the Quran that no religion, no deen is acceptable to Him except Islam. No deen is acceptable to Him except Islam. And even when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when his beloved uncle Abu Talib died without accepting Islam, the Prophet, as Abu Talib, the uncle of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was on his deathbed, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is encouraging him to accept Islam, to say the Shahada, and he refused. He refused to leave the religion of his forefathers. Then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was praying for his forgiveness, but Allah prohibited the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam from doing this. So even the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was prevented from doing this. This became a principle. It was revealed from Allah that this becomes a law, a principle law, a red line. You cannot pray for one who dies and is not apparently a Muslim. So that is one wrong reaction, is to cross that red line out of some sense of compassion, out of some sense of, maybe it's a sense of maslahah. We need to benefit, maybe we need to improve Christian-Muslim relations, so we can do that by praying for the Pope, saying rest in peace, or we can do that by saying Merry Christmas or Happy Easter, or spreading these kinds of greetings, which we also know is not allowed, is haram to do so. By consensus, by the way, by ijma' of the traditional scholars, ulama of our history. These are red lines, so you don't cross that for the sake of maslahah. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is to go and say, okay, the Pope has died, good, that kafir is dead, good, and celebrate. And celebrate that the Pope has died. Without any explanation, why are you... Because what's known about this Pope Francis, is that especially in the past year and a half, he's been very ill. And almost every day that he's been able to speak, he has said something for Palestine. He has said something in favor of Palestine and against the genocide. Isn't that significant? Isn't that something that we can appreciate? The Pope is the head of the largest religious group in the world, the Catholics, the Catholic Christians. And he has expressed over and over that he is on the side of the Palestinians. Now, there's a lot that Muslims and non-Muslims can say to criticize the Pope. No doubt about it. But do we really take him as an enemy such that when he dies, we're celebrating? And we're publicly stating this? You know, good riddance to this kafir. Good riddance to this. And I'm not saying that he was not a kafir. Kafir means disbeliever. He's not a Muslim. He clearly was a disbeliever. And he's the head of Catholicism. And there's nothing good about that. This is a source of shirk and misguidance. This is a taghut. But so this is where you get to another lack of understanding. Two poles, two sides, and there's no room in between. Why? Why can there be no room in between here? Is there no response between Allah yarhamu, may Allah have mercy on him, on the one hand, may Allah forgive him, and oh, that kafir dog, may he burn in the fire? There's nothing in between that? That's not the approach of Islam. That's not the approach of neither the Quran nor the Sunnah. And I'll prove that to you. I gave you the example of Abu Talib. Do you think that the Prophet ﷺ had the same feelings and the same attitude to his uncle Abu Talib as he did to Abu Jahl or Abu Lahab or these other enemies of Islam that have been attacking, killing Muslims? They attempted to kill the Prophet ﷺ. They want to wipe out Islam off the face of the earth. Do you think that all of the disbelievers are at the same level? Do you think all of them are one level and we have one level of animosity towards them? No, there are gradations. And we have this concept of in Islam, critical concept of al-wala wal-bara, which means loyalty and disassociation or disavowal, bara'a, disavowal. But disavowal also has levels. Disavowal also has different levels. There's the kind of bara'a you show, the disavowal you show towards Abu Jahl is not the same that you show towards Abu Talib. This is demonstrated by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is a kind of mental problem. I think it is an IQ problem that you can't see any gradation. It has to be black and white. Either someone is going to be in Jannat al-Firdaus or they're going to be in the lowest pit of the hellfire. There's only these two options. There's nothing in between. Even when it comes to the akhirah, we know that that's not true. We know that even the hellfire has different levels. The hellfire has different levels. Why do you think the hellfire has different levels? There's the deepest pit of the hellfire, which is reserved for the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, the ones who present themselves as Muslims, but they secretly don't believe in their hearts. That's the lowest level, the lowest pit of the hellfire of nar is reserved for the munafiqeen. Then you have other levels because there are gradations. There are gradations. So if you can understand that, if you can understand the levels and the tabaqat, the levels of the hellfire, you can also understand the levels of kuffar, of the disbelievers in this world, and how we can have different levels of approach towards them. So is it the wisest thing? Is it now if the Pope was actually pro the killing of Muslims and he had spent his career attacking Muslims, disparaging Islam, and this was like what he was known for, then yeah, I would say put that as the reason and say, look, we're happy that he's gone. And I've done that many times. There's been many of an enemy of Islam, many murtadeen that have kicked the bucket. And recently there was that Swedish guy, or he was an Iraqi immigrant who was a murtad, ex-Muslim, was burning the Quran, and someone shot him. So as far as I know, there was no resolution. The police didn't find the culprits. That's an open case as far as I know. And he was cremated, the irony. Okay, he was burning the Quran. Now he's cremated and he's turned to ash. And guess where he is? He's in the fire. He's in the fire. And, I was making comments, mocking this person. Yeah, he's an open enemy of Islam. He's burning the Quran. He's going and attacking Muslims. He's cheering for the genocide of Palestinians, our Muslim brothers and sisters. Of course I'm going to be happy when something happens to him. Of course I'm going to be happy when something happens to the IDF. Of course I'm going to be happy about that. Or those who are like cartoonists, many cartoonists who are making cartoons about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When they meet an untimely end, am I going to pretend like I'm sad about that? No, I'm going to gloat about it. I'm going to be happy about it. Just like they're gloating about Muslims dying, just like these cartoonists gloat about Muslims dying in earthquakes and hurricanes and whatever, natural disasters. They gloat and they laugh and they mock dead Muslim children. So there's clearly a difference between those people, those kuffar, and the kafir pope. In this, for this particular pope, Pope Francis, maybe the next pope is going to be a major hater of Islam, and he's going to be a major Zionist, and he's going to be encouraging genocide of the Palestinians. Maybe, Allahu A'lam, and then we treat that case as it comes up. But the point is that we have a kind of nuanced approach, and this is a recurring problem with Muslims online. Let me not make a generic statement about all Muslims. About the Muslims that I see online is that it's so black and white that it becomes a parody of itself. It becomes ludicrous. Like, really, you can't see a difference between either violating the red line and making dua for the dead pope and saying, may Allah have mercy on him. That red line, that's something that explicitly prohibited in Islam. You can't see the difference between that, or you see nothing between that and cursing him, that kafir pope, he's in hell. This is, we're not doing ourselves any favors. Because on the one hand, we are just throwing out Islamic principles. And on the other hand, we're throwing out the reality in which we live. And Islam does not tell you to ignore realities. Islam does not tell you to ignore realities. And we had a show, maybe it was over 6 months ago, where we talked about wasatiyah. These reformists, and we focused on Yasser Qadi and another guy, and how they are pushing a wasati reform of Islam. And key to the wasati reform of Islam, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch that episode. It's filled with a lot of details about this movement and this type of reform. But what they emphasize is maslaha mursala. What is in the public benefit? And they specifically use maslaha because there is a place in Islam for maslaha. Maslaha is accepted as a source of legislation or sharia or fiqh in Islam, to consider what is in the benefit of the Muslim community, what is in the public benefit. That is a important component of the sharia of Allah. So reformers specifically pinpoint that, and they use that as their basis of reform to reform the entire religion. And they know that if anyone criticizes them, they say, no, we're just talking about maslaha. Maslaha, all of the ulama of our history have spoken about maslaha and have accepted maslaha. And our response to that as traditional Muslims is, yeah, maslaha is important, but it has its place. Your problem, you reformists, are taking maslaha and using it as a weapon to wipe out the principles of Islam. You are using maslaha to wipe out the red lines, the principles, the clear-cut red lines of Islam. That's where no scholar has allowed it. You can't use a maslaha argument to say, for example, we're going to change the Friday prayer to a Saturday prayer. Why not? It's in the benefit of the Muslims. Muslims living in the modern world, in most countries, Friday is a work day. And Saturday and Sunday are the weekends. So Friday people have work. It's difficult at 1 p.m. or noon to leave your job and go pray and then go back to work. It's a difficulty. So wouldn't it be easier if we just had the Friday prayer on the weekend? We'd have many more Muslims coming. Many more Muslims could come. They'd benefit. So there's so much benefit. There's the maslaha is in that. Why can't we just change the Friday prayer to a Saturday prayer? Or, why don't we take the issue of marriage? Like, marriage is difficult. People have these requirements that can't be met. So it's in the benefit, and we can't tell these Muslim youth to just be celibate. They can't engage in zina. That causes psychological harm. It causes all kinds of hardship. So it's in the benefit, it's in the maslaha if we just allow zina to happen. And we allow that for our time and place. For our time and place. Now the situation is different than 1400 years ago. We have to allow zina to take place with no restrictions. Why can't we use that kind of maslaha reasoning? And the answer is, well, there are clear-cut red lines. There's clear-cut haram and halal, and these have been defined. They've been defined by Allah in the Quran and the Sunnah, and they've been established and codified in the traditional schools of law, in the fiqh. And no scholar has disagreed on it. No scholar has disagreed on these issues. That's what makes them red lines. Now, if there were issues where there is ikhtilaf, okay, then at least there's a conversation and there can be a weighing of the pros and cons. And then maybe maslaha comes into the picture in certain cases. But even then, I would be very cautious of even trying to use the issue of ikhtilaf between the madhahib to kind of squeeze in reform. That's also something that is a big danger, and we've talked about that as well. But at least that is more justifiable than what wasati reformists are trying to do by abolishing family law in Islam, marriage law in Islam, commercial law in Islam. They're saying that, bank loans are not technically riba. School loans are not technically riba. There is maslaha. If we don't have students taking loans for their education, then we won't have any Muslim doctors and engineers. So we have to have these school loans. We have to take riba. We have to make it permissible, for example. This is the kind of maslaha gone wrong. So as we acknowledge that and we critique that, we also acknowledge that maslaha does have a place in Islam. And is it in the maslaha of Islam to say we're going to go and curse the Pope, and we have to, now is the time to emphasize how much we think that he is a kafir who is going to be burning in hell. Now, publicly we're going to go to the rooftops and announce this. Now, maybe there is a reason to do that. But as far as I know, what the Pope has shown recently is pretty consistent support for Palestine and against Israel. That's the optics of it, as far as I can tell. Maybe you guys have seen something different, but again, we have this kind of polarization and this divide. No in between, no nuance. And I'll give you another example. When it comes to the issue of these white nationalists, you have these white nationalists who are anti-immigration. They do not want Muslims to be immigrating into their countries. And in some cases, they even want Muslims to be deported out of the United States, out of Europe, out of their white countries. And so they're these white nationalists. What should our view be about these white nationalists? And again, there seems to be like this kind of black and white approach. We either love them and we think, oh, they're the most amazing. These are the... Why? Why? Because they're speaking out against Israel. They're speaking against this Jewish lobby, this Israeli Zionist lobby and influence that is pushing for the oppression of Muslims throughout the world, especially in Palestine and the Middle East. So we love them. They're our heroes on one hand. Or on the other hand, no, these are kuffar. These are degenerate kuffar that we hate, and we have to speak out against them. Why are these the only two options? This is my question all the time. Why are these the only two options? Same thing with the Shia. Same thing with Iran. Either Iran is, the best, greatest force of heroism and saving the ummah, the Iranian government, or they are the worst. They're even worse than the Jews and the Christians. They're even worse than the United States. They're worse than Israel. They're the first ones. Like, why is there no in between? Like, why can't you have a nuanced position where you recognize Iran has committed crimes and they need to be held accountable for Muslims that they have killed through proxies in the Middle East, and at the same time, we support them against Israel, against what Israel wants to do to the Middle East? We don't want Iran to be defeated. We don't want Iran to be bombed. First of all, because they're fellow Muslims. And second of all, even if they weren't Muslims, we still wouldn't want them to be defeated by Israel because they're the main counteracting force against Israel being able to expand without limits and ethnically cleanse not only the rest of Palestine, not only Gaza, not only the West Bank, but also Lebanon, also Syria, also Jordan, also the Sinai, also northern Saudi Arabia, eventually southern Turkey. Why not? They have their eyes. That's the Greater Israel Project. What's preventing that from happening? What forces? Be honest and understand the geopolitical reality. What is preventing? Do you really think that it's some other leaders, some of these other countries are putting up a resistance to what Israel is doing? Like, let's be honest. You can reckon, but I know how some of these low IQ idiots think. They think that if I say anything positive about Iran, then that means I think that they're the greatest heroes of the ummah and I 100% support them. And that's the kind of black and white idiocy that many of these people are suffering. Many of my critics are suffering from. You can't understand a nuanced position that some things are not black and white. Some things are gray. Some things are gray. And I'm not saying what's gray is that the Pope is a kafir or not. I'm not saying that that's a gray area. He's 100%. He's a kafir and he died as a kafir. That's 100. There's no gray about that. But when it comes to how we respond publicly, our public relations strategy, the optics, then there is some nuanced positions that are going to be more beneficial without crossing any red lines, without crossing any kind of set red lines that are established in the deen. That's all that's required. And then people will say to me, they'll respond, but Daniel, remember when you were criticizing the compassionate imams in the United States for their stance on LGBT? Remember that? You were very black and white about that issue, but now you have discovered hikmah, and now you've discovered maslahah, and now you understand nuance. No, you idiot. No. Because what the compassionate imams were advocating was a crossing of red lines. They were advocating a crossing and a dissolving of red lines in Islam. They wanted Muslims to support gay marriage. They wanted Muslims to support transgender bathrooms. Explicitly, this is what they wanted Muslims to. They wanted Muslims to support LGBT equality and anti-discrimination laws. These are things that are clear-cut, contrary to Islam. And if you don't believe me, have you even read the Quran? Have you even read? Do you not hear what Allah is saying about Qawm Lut? And what Qawm Lut, the entire society being destroyed because of this corruption that crept up and expanded and grew until it came to the very doors of Lut alayhi salam, the prophet Lut, where they were banging on the door demanding to molest his guests, the angels. That's how bad that society had become. Why? Because you gave them a foot in the door and you allowed that to spread. And that's what the society here, even the kafir society, recognized this. That, okay, the slippery slope is a real thing. We just wanted gay marriage. And we thought, okay, whatever you do in the privacy of your bedroom is fine. That's what we said in 2015 or 2016. And now, a mere 3-4 years later, they want to have drag queen story hour at the kindergarten. They want my toddler to get a gender transition surgery because he wore his mom's high heels that one time, or he wore his mom's lipstick, so that means he's a transgender baby. He needs to be on hormone replacement therapy or hormone blocking therapy. So, whoa, the slippery slope is real. Even the kuffar, even the non-Muslims, they recognize this and they say, okay, now we're against woke. Woke, the term woke used to be a positive thing. Oh, you're woke. You're awake from the realities. You're awake and you see the realities. You're not asleep like these sheep. Woke used to be a positive thing. Now, there's been such a cultural backlash that now it's a negative. Like if you're called woke, that's an insult. That means you're the worst kind of political degenerate. You're the worst kind of, even the right wing or the left wing is now moving away and disassociating from the term woke. They're disassociating. No more rainbow logos for all these companies. They're scaling back. Why do you think that is? Because even they realize the backlash is too great, that this is too far, that we are done with this for the time being. Even the non-Muslims recognize. But you had these compassionate imams who are pushing it, who are right there on the cultural train, pushing LGBT, going to the LGBT marches, standing side by side with LGBT activists, collaborating with their organizations and telling Muslims, yeah, there's no problem with this. That's where you're crossing a red line. That's when your maslaha calculation is not hikmah at all. It's the opposite of hikmah. This is an attack on Islam. So people, they don't have the capability. Many, unfortunately, Muslims do not have the capacity to make these distinctions, to understand, like, okay, what really is the maslaha? Because even with the compassionate imams, let's say that there wasn't a red line crossed with LGBT. What benefit ultimately came with locking hands with these progressive left wing? Like, what ultimate benefit came from that? Or you had people like Yasser Qadi, Omar Suleiman, Yaqeen Institute telling Muslims, hey, we need to go support these democratic presidential candidates. They were literally on the campaign trail for someone like Bernie Sanders. Someone like Omar Suleiman was at Bernie Sanders' campaign rally, pushing people to vote for Bernie Sanders. And he was the token Muslim representative, Muslim Palestinian representative. I stand with Bernie Sanders. Where's Bernie Sanders today, I wonder? Oh, Bernie Sanders, who cannot condemn Zionism, will never condemn Zionism, and he just has he says Netanyahu is the bad guy. It's just Netanyahu. The kind of lowest common denominator, the lowest rung of opposition to the genocide. That's what Bernie Sanders is. Such a big maslaha. So much was gained by driving Muslims to accept LGBT and feminism and all of this left-wing progressive garbage. Such a big benefit with Bernie Sanders. So this is a lack of hikmah. This is a lack of hikmah. This is a lack of understanding. We do accept maslaha. We do accept hikmah. We do accept this kind of nuanced perspective as long as it doesn't cross a red line in Islam. And as long as there actually is a maslaha. Sometimes the maslaha for some of these figures leading the Muslim community, they might be the compassionate imams, they might be some of these dictators or tyrants, they might be some of the masjid boards. The maslaha that they're talking about is like their personal maslaha. What's good for them personally in terms of their career, in terms of their pocket, in terms of their bank account. That's the maslaha that they have in mind. But that's not, so even if you're not violating any red lines in Islam, the maslaha is your personal maslaha. It's not the maslaha of the entire Muslim community. And the iman of the Muslim community, the property of the Muslim community, the future of the Muslim community, the children of the Muslim community, that's not the maslaha that you have in mind. The maslaha that you have in mind is your personal career. Your businesses and your partnerships and your network. That's what you have as the maslaha. So these issues are all connected. And this is the framework that I want you to keep in mind as we talk about some of these local issues, because it affects the entire ummah. And online discourse is very important when we look at the reactions to the Pope dying. And when we look at the reactions to the genocide in Palestine, like we live in a time where everyone has access to the internet and can put out their views, and the algorithm can pick up any garbage view and amplify it. This can be a very problematic situation. This is a reality that has never existed in the past. Generally, you had the vast majority of Muslims were uneducated. They were illiterate or had bare bones level of literacy, enough to read the Quran, to recite the Quran. But that was it. Muslim society was led by the elite. For better or worse, it was led by the elite. And these were the elite in terms of what? In terms of wealth, but in terms of education, in terms of knowledge. And when you are wealthy, you have the resources to send your children to be educated, to study, or you yourself have enough wealth to study or to travel and to learn. Oftentimes to be educated in the past meant you had to travel long distances to acquire knowledge. This was the sociological reality for the majority of Muslim history. And the elites were the ones who would write books. They were the ones who were speaking on the minbar. They were the ones who were consulted for political decisions, for shura, for military decisions. So there was a hierarchical distinction within Muslim societies. Now, the correct way to organize that hierarchy is on the basis of knowledge and piety. Knowledge and piety. And this is what we see with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't go to every single Sahabi, every single Muslim, and ask his opinion. What should we do in this situation? What should we do with the Quraysh? What should we do with these mushrikeen? How should we organize our state? He didn't go to every single Muslim and get his or her opinion. No, he went to his trusted companions who were the elite companions, distinguished by their devotion to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, their commitment to Islam, because they had sacrificed much of their wealth for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for the cause of Islam, and they demonstrated that personal piety that allowed them to have that station close to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he would consult with them on important decisions, like Abu Bakr, like Umar, like Uthman, etc. So this is the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But now we have a situation where everyone has an opinion. It's fine to have an opinion, but you're also entitled that people should hear your opinion and that people should respect your opinion. Why? And I'm not trying to make an argument from authority, because I'm just another person as well among the billions. But we have a right to question your opinion. We have a right to question, because so many of these opinions expressed online are trash. They're trash, and they are objectively trash that we can criticize, that we can evaluate, that we can speak against. And that's why debate is so important. That's why confrontation is so important, because now we're forced in a situation. In the past, there were sociological factors that prevented riffraff from having public opinion that everyone has to be subjected to, that everyone has to be subjected to listening. There were sociological factors because you didn't have because of a lack of literacy, because of a lack of technology to be able to propagate your views through social media. Sociological and technological factors prevented that. Now we don't have that. So what kind of mechanisms do we have in place to separate the wheat from the chaff, or the chaff? We have to have debate, confrontation, calling people out. But on the basis of what? On the basis of what? Knowledge, research, information that's grounded in our traditional Islamic sciences. That's the kind of conversation that we need to have. And those who claim that they are the bearers of traditional knowledge, and they're out there pushing for reform, they're speaking out against the hijab, they're speaking out in favor of alliances with either left-wing progressives or Zionists or what have you, and they claim to be the shuyukh and the ulama, and they wear their costume, and they're promoting every type of degeneracy. They should be challenged. They should be debated. Who's going to come out on top? And that's the thing that they avoid. And that's proof that they're not qualified and they're not suitable to be in such positions. If you can't have your views questioned and challenged, and you can't respond to that challenge, then you don't have a claim to authority. You don't have a claim to leadership. You could only be in a position of leadership by silencing your critics, by silencing and ignoring the criticisms that are directed at you. When a bunch of Wahhabi trash criticized me, I didn't say, silence, you don't know what you're just ignorant. You are ignorant, but this is the proof why you're ignorant. And I'll debate you, and I'll defend my views, and I'll criticize what you're bringing. And they ran away, and they refuse. So that tells you all you need to know, really. So now let's move into this issue of the Zionist collaborations that we see in the Houston Muslim community, not only at this particular masjid, but also with the greater masjid society, the Islamic Society of Greater Houston. We want to talk about that. But first, I want to look at your super chats, because there were several that came in, and I want to look at your commentary. Saeed says Sheikh Diddu's university in Mauritania was collecting donations during Ramadan, but they didn't get any traction online. If you can give them a shout out, inshallah. Their YouTube channel is Safwa Center. Okay, that's my shout out. I haven't checked it out, so I don't know what this project is, but didn't Omar Suleiman give a platform to that one hijabi that protested at Google? Has he said anything concerning this? Double standards? I don't know who he's given a platform to. I don't know what's the double standard you're referring to, but thanks for the super chat. We Muslims think will go to Jannah, they say. We Muslims think he will go to Jannah. Yeah, the Pope. Arsalan says people of Kashmir and Gaza. Video on Kashmir. Yeah, so referring to the recent news in Kashmir. We're not going to cover it in this show, but maybe in future episodes later. If you're interested, let me know in the chat or the comments. But it seems like one possibility is that it's a false flag. There were some so-called tourists that were gunned down. By who, it's not clear as far as I can tell, but they're blaming Muslims in Kashmir. So they're saying Muslims committing terrorism in Kashmir. Sounds like a false flag, just to justify more oppression of Muslims. Free Kashmir. Thank you, brother. Any other comments before we move on? Why do people have the right to insult the wives, children, and companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No one has the right for that. Okay, so this is a good transition. Why is it always hijabis protesting the hardest? That's the question that I have, and that's the question that we're going to get into, inshallah, as we talk about this protest that happened at a Houston masjid. So let me pull up the details. So there was a video released talking about the event. So let's just watch that and I'll comment.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Uzair Sayyid Ahmed. I am Musali at Sabreen for the last 12 years. I've been very actively involved in the community. I want to get the record straight because there's a lot of potential for people to discredit what we're doing or what happened. But the reason I'm doing this is because I think it's the right thing to do. I'm deeply troubled by what happened on Friday, and I'm not afraid to speak out.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Amina Ishaq. I have been a ISGH member for the past 10 years and am currently a lifetime member. I was actually not.
So ISGH is the Islamic Society of Greater Houston. It's an umbrella organization. There are about 20 masajid in Houston that they oversee. And so these are major masajid, multi-million-dollar masajid. And they direct the operations of ISGH. So full disclosure, ISGH has banned me from speaking at any of their masajid. So I can't speak at any of these masajid, give a khutbah or anything like that because of ISGH. So now let's see what this ISGH member has to say.
Planning to attend the Jummah prayer at Sabreen However, I was informed of the pro-Palestinian candidate not being allowed to speak when she had been confirmed to speak at the masjid. So when I found this out, I started driving towards the masjid thinking, okay, I'm going to try to help out. So I contacted an active volunteer and I had a discussion with him asking him, the pro-Palestinian candidate is not able to speak. Can we try to get her in? She had gotten the okay to do so. And at that moment, we got into a little disagreement about it. And he stated that he would not be able to do that. So he's like, you can come to the masjid, do whatever you need, but she will not be able to probably speak.
My name is Michelle McKeska. I am a mayoral candidate in the upcoming Sugarland election. I was invited to Sabrin to speak after Juma prayer. Myself and several other candidates were going to be allowed to speak. Once I got there, the person who had invited me told me that they had changed their mind. They were not going to let me speak. Obviously, I was disappointed, but since they weren't going to let me speak inside, I still had my flyers, and it was permissible to pass out my flyers outside in the foyer. And so that's where I was, and that's what I was doing.
My wife.
So if you don't understand what's happening, Masjid Sabrin, this is the masjid that is in question. And you have mayoral candidates who want to become the mayor of Sugarland, this city, are dying to come and speak to Muslims at Jummah after Friday prayer. So that tells you that Muslims are quite a large demographic in this area of Houston. We're talking maybe hundreds of thousands of Muslims are in this area, and they're wealthy. They're not very poor. They're wealthy Muslims. Millions of dollars can be made if you can campaign these Muslims to support your cause, whatever that cause may be. So you have these mayoral candidates who are pining. They just want to get there and stand in front of the or stand next to the mimbar at the masjid. As far as I'm concerned, this in itself is a disaster. Like, why is the masjid being used for politics like this? For this kind of politics? Local elections. Okay, there are a million things wrong with this and using the masjid in that kind of capacity. And I mean, it would be even more egregious if they had a non-Muslim woman come in front of all the men to speak and say, oh, I'm, so-and-so, please vote for me. I'm going to do a lot for the Muslim community. Like, that in itself is a violation of Islamic values, a violation of modesty and hijab. But even if you're bringing in some Joe Schmo in the masjid to come, why? Like, why do they get to have this proximity to the mimbar of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to have this kind of proximity, this closeness? Friday prayer, such important worship, ibadah, that you're bringing someone to come and promote themselves, promote him or herself for like some dinky mayor position? Like, do we not have self-respect as Muslims that we can't keep this sacred? We use the word sacred in all kinds of inappropriate ways. Unfortunately, some of the same people, sacred activism. We're going to be activists, but sacred activists. Like, who said this is sacred? Who said your activism is sacred? For example, as we go march for immigrants. But when it comes to what is sacred, namely the masjid and the mimbar, you're turning into like a boxing ring for politicians to come and promote themselves. That in itself is a separate scandal, but let's continue.
I had emailed, for the record, the Sabrin leadership on the 1st of February, communicating to them that we feel very strongly about the idea of Naushad Karmali coming to the masjid, because we have seen what he's done with us at the city council. He does not represent Muslim values. He seconded the motion that was passed to silence us for speaking about Palestine or making a request for prayer for Palestine. He has smirked at us, scowled at us when the Muslim women were being escorted out. He's called the cops on hijabi women as backups.
So this Naushad, he is claiming to be Muslim. This is what they're complaining about. He's claiming to be Muslim. Actually, he's Ismaili. So Ismailis are not Muslim. They don't have masajid, for example. They have their own community. They're not Muslim. And they believe in the Agha Khan. They believe that the Agha Khan is the representative, the mirror of God on earth. And they believe that the Agha Khan can make laws, and they don't pray, they don't fast. Why? Because the Agha Khan says you don't need to pray and fast. So he changes the deen of Allah as the representative or the mirror of God on earth. So this is a separate religion. So you have someone who is Ismaili who's coming and claiming when it's convenient, they claim to be Muslim and they pretend that they're Muslim. And he wants to be the mayor, but he's sitting on the city council of Sugarland. And what this brother is saying is that he has voted against Palestinian activism. So what the sisters, Muslim sisters, were doing, why is it the Muslim sisters are the main ones protesting? They're going to the city council meetings with signs, and they're protesting against Zionism. They're protesting against Israel at the city council, and they're speaking at the city council meeting, and then the city council has a vote to prevent them from speaking. And this supposedly Muslim candidate votes to silence the pro-Palestinian activists. So this is the complaint that he's talking about.
The city council is placing spies in the WhatsApp groups. The idea of him on the member was triggering, because we are inviting our abuser to our dining table and giving him the head of the table.
So at that moment, I just told the brother.
So you're inviting, this is triggering, you're inviting the abuser at the head of the table. I just want to note the language, like why triggering and why abuse? Like, it's like feminist kind of language, actually. It's like woke quoted, feminist quoted language. Like, this is triggering. Like, just call this is Zionist scum, or this is someone who has shown his affiliation to Zionism. And what does that mean? We'll talk about it more in a minute. But just call him out. He's Zionist scum, and we oppose this Zionist coming to our masjid and pretending like he's a Muslim and asking for our vote. Just call it like it is. No need to use this feminist activist language.
I was like, okay, well, if the Zionist normalizing candidate is allowed to speak at my masjid, I will be outside protesting, and that's my right as a congregant. So then once I got to the masjid, I parked, and I had brought my banner. We had been protesting at city council for over 15 months, and we held up that banner. So I wanted to hold that up at the masjid so he could see it. So I prayed my salah.
Yeah, so she was going to the city council with a banner protesting. And so she brought that same banner to the masjid to continue her protest against this candidate.
I went and I held up the banner with the other organizer. There was congregants coming out of the masjid, and they were listening to all of this. I started educating and projecting my voice loud so they could hear that he is a Zionist normalizing candidate. We do not need to vote for him. I was protesting him speaking inside of the masjid that I had made sujood in, a masjid that I had been coming to with my children, that I had volunteered at. It was something in me that I could not stop myself, so I was trying to educate the brothers. He was saying that he would be the first Muslim mayor of Sugarland and that we should all support him because he's a Muslim. However, he has been working for the past 15 to 16 months against Muslim interests, against Palestinian interests. And we had been seeing that every single city council meeting, which is every 2 weeks for the past 15 months. We did not miss one meeting.
He's speaking as a Muslim candidate, and he's being presented as a Muslim candidate who represents our values, telling people that this is the Muslim candidate we have to back. I couldn't live with myself for not having spoken up to create the awareness that this is not true. I'll set the record.
Yeah, so if you're wondering who this guy is, here's his campaign page. Hold on. There he is. Proudly living in Sugarland for nearly 30 years. There's him and his wife and kids. Proud Texans, like this is who is coming to speak at the masjid to get your vote. So like this is the sorry state. Like, so who approved this? Like this is a major masjid, multi-million-dollar masjid, and just being used as a political pawn for these kinds of people.
Straight, because I only spoke for 5 seconds. I had my hand raised. I did not interrupt him. I let him speak and complete, and then I said,
"Shame on you for asking for our vote. What you've done."
You're an post-rally.
Outside, stop talking. We'll escort you with the police. This is the house of Allah. Go. That's it.
So this guy looks like someone named Fuad, which we'll talk about in a second. And there's the candidate, standing there, Nashad or whatever, however you pronounce his name. And then you see, like, this is right after Jummah. People are praying. You see this old man in the front. This is like 2 rows or 3 rows of this huge masjid. And he spoke out. And he said, "You're pro-Israeli."
Thank you.
you should be ashamed for asking for our votes, given what your stance has been on Gaza and Palestine. And my son said, "You are pro-Israeli." That's all the words that came out of my mouth. And we left right away. It's not like we lingered or we did anything. And this is troubling to me because it's not the first time this has happened. The president of ISGH, MJ Khan, was protested and heckled inside Masjid Sabrin after Jummah Salah, where a Musali stood up and challenged him. And that challenge went on for 2 minutes, and it was very ceremoniously handled, and he was dismissed. So the idea that anybody speaking from the minbar cannot be questioned is troubling to me, because the only one-way communication that happens on the minbar is the khutbah. And if you are standing there, you can be questioned. In our masjid, I can question the ISGH president for 2 minutes and not have any backlash. But I can't question Naushad Karmali. He is above the ISGH president. What happened after that, right after, was Brother Fuad came to my son and said, "You shouldn't do that. I could have you and your father arrested." It's very traumatizing for an 11-year-old to be told this by an elder, because all he's saying is calling out a soft Zionist on the stage of the minbar. It's problematic to me because what is the message we are saying, right? If you have a problem with my mode of protest, you talk to me directly. I mean, it's so traumatizing to the kid and troubling to me that you are threatening a child, 11-year-old, with the arrest of him and his father from a masjid. And this is so reminiscent of the tactics that the IDF uses to intimidate the kids in the West Bank. And to see it happen to my child in the masjid is troubling. And it's something that I am deeply offended by.
So if you want to know who Fuad is, this guy who is I don't know if he's officially a masjid board member, but he's one of the benefactors of the masjid. He's contributing a lot of money to this masjid, and that he was standing there and telling him we're going to escort you out. We're going to call the police. We're going to arrest you, to this little kid. So who is this guy? He's like a businessman. And you just Google his name, and this is what you see. Like, here is, you can Google him and see like the kind of person who is in control of the masajid. Like posing with women. So, like, it's shameful. Like, this is the kind of person who controls the masajid, has that kind of influence over the Muslim community. Like, is that really the kind of elite? Because again, the elites were in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yeah, they're wealthy, but it's not just wealth. It's not just money. It's also piety. It's also commitment to the Muslims, devotion to the Muslim community, having that wala, having that loyalty to the Muslim community, not having loyalty to an Ismaili business partner or Ismaili candidate for mayor who can give you certain benefits for your business, your personal business in that city. So it's just corruption. It's like the most base form of corruption that you can imagine. We complain about it. Oh, our countries back home are suffering from corruption and are suffering from this kind of inside dealing at the expense of the Muslim community, at the expense of the larger ummah. It's not just happening in the Middle East. It's not just happening in South Asia. It's happening right here in our backyard. The most simple form of corruption possible. Like, I will give you money to support you, and I'll get you money. I'll fundraise for you so that you can be the mayoral candidate, and in return, you benefit my business. You put laws in place. You put policies in place. I'll benefit my interests. It's a quid pro quo. It's a handshake deal. Now, I'm not saying that took place. I'm not making that kind of allegation. Maybe it did. That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like. How else can you explain these events? But this is the problems that we are suffering in one part of the ummah. It is affecting the entirety of the ummah.
And I don't take lightly. My child was being threatened. Sister Amna was just handcuffed, and the commotion is happening behind me. So I thought that's more important for me to address right now, because I could see her crying profusely.
As I was projecting my voice to educate the brothers as they were walking outside, I was telling them facts. I was telling them facts about what had happened at city council for the past year, that he is not with the Muslims. Please do not vote for him. All of a sudden, these two cops came and they said, "Ma'am, you have to leave." And I was like, "I'm not going to leave. This is my mosque." He said, "You're trespassing." And I was like, "No, I'm not trespassing. This is my masjid. I just prayed salah."
After Jummah finished, I, get up, I'm about to leave, and I see Sister Amna there, like, holding a sign, and she's saying, "Hey, Nashad gets to speak, and Michelle does not." Now, this is for the Sugarland City Council mayor race, and I'm like, all right, well, that's not allowed. As a 501c3 organization, every candidate has to be allowed to speak. You can't pick and choose, otherwise you risk losing your C3 status. So
this is part of the law. If you want to be a non-profit organization, and if you're a non-profit organization, you get certain tax benefits, and you can apply for certain grants, etc. It's a financial incentive to be 501c3 nonprofit. You can't be politically partisan. That's a clear red line. If you prefer certain candidates, or you say we're a Democratic organization or we're a Republican organization, you lose your 501c3 status. So a masjid, these masajid especially, they cannot choose one candidate to support, even in local elections. They still get around that. All of these masajid, they still get around that. They heavily push a Democrat-leaning message, a left-wing-leaning message in their khutbahs. Whether they're talking about immigration, whether they're even talking about like interfaith Christian relations with certain churches that are leaning politically one way or another, they get around this rule and push a lot of politics. But they make sure to keep it vague enough or ambiguous enough where they won't lose their 501c3 status. What this Muslim brother is saying is that they are, by preventing one candidate from speaking, this other lady that we saw earlier in the video, they're violating this kind of nonprofit rule.
I go inside and I talk to Fawad Kochinwala, and I said, "Hey, there's a candidate outside, like, can she speak?" And he was like, "Yeah, sure, just bring her in." And I was like, all right, cool, yeah. Then I go outside. As I'm, there, the cops are escalating what's happening with Amna.
She was speaking loudly to the men, telling them one of the candidates who was there that was speaking had actively silenced our voices at city council, that he had allied with Zionists. Then I saw the police approach her very quickly. I was concerned that the police were going to get aggressive, and so I went over to make sure that Amina was okay. At that point, I heard the police officer say she was trespassing, to which she responded,
I'm an ISGH member. I don't have to leave. And then the cops kept insisting, well, they want you gone. And I said, who wants me gone? He kept saying, they want you gone. And I was like, who? Let me speak to the AD. And you will have to arrest me, but I will not leave because this is my masjid. Right when I said that, the cop next to me, he's like, okay, well, you're under arrest. And he grabbed my hands and he put the cuffs on me.
At that point, this is by instinct, I just reached my hand out to grab Amina's arm because I obviously did not want her to be arrested. And then the police looked at me and said, I will arrest you as well if I tried to interfere with the arrest. And it was at this point that thankfully we had some other people who were speaking up and trying to de-escalate the situation.
You know, if they're doing good work.
So this is outrageous. They're touching a sister, grabbing her and putting her in cuffs against her will, handcuffs, and they're about to arrest her. So this is so disgusting, and it represents so much that is wrong with these masajid, with their politics, with the whole idea that a sister, a Muslim sister, this is her activism, like she's protesting. Where are the men in this situation, I wonder? And you're bringing Ismaili here to talk about voting for me in his electoral campaign. Like, this is just layer and layer and layer of dysfunction that we have, unfortunately, in the Muslim community here in the West, in America.
For the pro-Palestine movement, you know, them being in jail does not help anybody right now. And so my priority at that point was to make sure that they did not get arrested.
We were able to tell the police officer that we would comply, that Amina would leave. And at that point, he removed the cuffs.
And so once the officers, you know, take the handcuffs off, you know, one guy in a white shirt was like,
I'm the management. I didn't say anything. I didn't say arrest her.
You don't have to tell me to arrest her. I don't need your permission.
Yeah. Well, I'm one of the management here.
Okay, well, someone else told him they need to
the cops pointed to two specific individuals, a guy named Tamim and a guy named Wahab. They were saying, you know, they gave us permission, but then when we spoke to them, they said, no, we didn't say arrest her. We said, you know, tell her to get off the property. And so, yeah, I truly don't know if they're lying here, like if Tamim or Wahab are lying, or if the cops are lying.
So you guys remember when I went and confronted Sohaib Webb at that masjid? That masjid was also in Sugarland. It wasn't the same masjid as this. And you remember when the masjid, one of the imams in collaboration with the masjid board were threatening that they would arrest me if I didn't leave the masjid property. So this is a habit. Like, they think that they can just call the police and arrest whoever they don't like, whoever is saying something that they don't approve of. We're going to call the police and have you arrested. And, you know, sometimes that might be justified if someone is really coming to cause a disturbance. Like, there's examples of Hindus that have come to masjid property and have threatened Muslims, Hindu nationalists who have done this. Or sometimes there have been some of these Republicans who have come and started to protest against the Muslims in this whatever bigoted way. Yeah, call the police for that case. But if it's a Muslim and they're advocating for Palestine, or in my case, I'm a Muslim and I'm criticizing the speaker that you have, you're going to just remove me by force? I'm not causing any disturbance. I'm just literally standing outside. This sister was standing outside. She's not in the masjid. She's just standing in the parking lot or nearby the parking lot, but still, we're going to remove you. We're going to arrest you. Why? We're just talking. We're not even raising our voice. It's not like we have a speakerphone that we're trying to project or disturb anyone. We just want to talk about our view, and just because you disagree, you have to use this kind of force. And it shows the kind of insecurity, fragility of some of these organizations and these masjid boards. They cannot take any level of criticism. Same with compassionate imams, all of this dawah mafia. They cannot take any level of criticism because their positions are so wrong and so difficult to defend, indefensible positions that they take, that they literally cannot tolerate any kind of protest, any kind of pushback, because it completely collapses. They cannot defend themselves. And this is why they won't debate. This is why when I tried to debate Sohaib Webb, they wouldn't allow it to happen. They wouldn't give us a place to actually sit and debate. I had to just confront him in the parking lot after he called me out and challenged me. We had to do it in the parking lot. And even then they couldn't tolerate that. They had to kick me out, or they were threatening to kick me out of the masjid parking lot, because they cannot tolerate, they cannot defend themselves against the most basic critique. That shows how that it's just through bullying, it's just through outright dictatorial policies. Only those that we approve can speak in the masjid. We own the masjid. We own the masjid. We'll bring our Ismaili friend and business partner to come and campaign, but you don't get to speak at the masjid, Daniel. You don't get to speak on the minbar. You don't get the right to talk about anything. You can't forget about the minbar. What about a halaqah? Like, what about like a Quran reading session? Like, we'll go over tajweed rules. And we'll review how to read the Quran with proper recitation and tajweed. No, Daniel can't do that. Daniel can't do that at our masajid. But you can have an Ismaili come and give his campaign speech.
But what I do know is that the cops did escalate that much faster than it had to be.
And the only reason I was there so proudly, like this much emotion, was thinking that I am safe in this space. This space is my space. I cannot be arrested in my masjid.
So after Amina is
The masjid is a safe space.
uncuffed and I'm assured that she's okay, the man who invited me to come speak came up to me and said, "Hurry, go into the room. They've changed their mind. Now you can go speak." At this point, Juma prayer was long over. The two male candidates had already said their piece and were outside, but I ran as fast as I could into the women's section and I was allowed to speak from the mic for a minute. At that point, the worship center was pretty empty because most people had already left by then.
Then one brother.
Oh, see how women are so oppressed in Islam. This is why we need to make sure to empower women, so after Jummah prayer they can give a speech in front of the men in the men's section. That's equality. How embarrassing. I know that there are people like this. How embarrassing that the female non-Muslim candidate didn't get the same right to speak on the minbar like the male candidates did. This is completely misogynistic. This is intolerable. We have to fundamentally reshape our traditions. We have to ensure gender equality, that the masjid is a safe space for all genders, male, female, or other, at the masjid after Jummah prayer to give your campaign speech. See the mess? See the mess on top of another mess on top of another mess.
Brother said to me, "Why were you being violent? This is not the way to talk. You should go inside and talk to this city council member." And then I was trying to explain myself that I had been doing that for 15 months at city council every other week. And I want the Muslim community to remember that I was safer in a space that was not mine. But I was unsafe in a space that I had every right to be in.
Was walking to my truck, and then halfway to my truck I hear commotion. So I see a tall big guy scolding a woman and really speaking to her in very strong manner. And I see over 100 men all just sitting there studying. Then I immediately start trying to calm things down and seeing how he was really scolding her. Say, "Hey brother, calm down. He said, "She's attacking me, she's accusing me this, accusing me with that." And then I said, "Can we just, what happened?" And then people said, "Well, she was just about to be arrested and handcuffed." And then I asked him, who called the police on her? You called the police? Of course. No, I didn't. In fact, I allowed her to come to the masjid, which is really shocking to me. In what capacity a man have the right to permit and not permit people to come to the masjid? The whole situation could have been diffused so easily. She doesn't like whatever was happening in the masjid.
Preventing a Muslim activist, Muslim sister from the masjid, it's a scandal. I mean, it rightfully is a scandal, but I can't help but be wonder, like, when I was prevented, when I was blocked, there was no video, there was no white knight coming to defend me or to speak on my behalf. It's just interesting the difference. And we'll look more about this sister, her activism, what it really entails.
Fine, let her speak.
Amna was doing the right thing. If they weren't going to let Michelle speak inside, they weren't going to allow people to address their feelings about Noshad. This is the only recourse she has, which is to let people know the truth. Were people upset that she was loud? I mean, sure, but that's not wrong. Are people upset she had a sign? Again, nothing illegal, nothing wrong. She's
nothing wrong with a woman going out loudly accosting Muslims or non-Muslims. Nothing wrong with that.
Just doing her thing.
I've seen some merchants outside the masjid, they're louder than she was. I didn't see him calling police on them.
I was talking to Tamim, Wahab, some of the other uncles. I was telling them hey, the cops tried to arrest Amna, they escalated, and one uncle was like, well, they should arrest her. She's causing a disturbance in the house of Allah. And I was like, I don't think you understand the gravity here. If you call the cops on somebody protesting, you are potentially putting their lives in danger.
I don't understand what kind of community call police on each other. You call police just because you heard her saying something you don't like?
And this is why it hurts so much to me, because Sabreen is home. It's where my kids feel at home. The reason I'm so troubled by this is because I never imagined that this would ever happen in any masjid, let alone Sabreen, because Sabreen is better than this. We know this to be better than this. And that's the message I want to give the community, that there is some khair in all of this. Allahu khairu makirin. So the people who are wrong, you have to do right by them, and right by them with the correct niyyah, that we want to make this right. I'm deeply hurt. I would never have thought that this is something that would happen in Sabreen to a Muslim sister. Sabreen has led by example, and this is a huge letdown that has hurt the sentiments of the community. And I am with you here. I am as hurt as anyone else is here by all these incidents. So we need some sincerity in doing right by the people who are wronged, and really looking into this to come up with better policies. They can't be sweeping under the rug here. We have to hold accountable. Why did this happen? This will make us, inshallah, stronger. That's the hope. This is come to a point and to a halt where we will want to work towards something better. And there's a petition out there making a request of what should be done. Inshallah, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We'll come out stronger after all of this. And there is hikmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So this is the video that they put out. That's a pretty quick turnaround time, because this is just from last Friday. So just within 4 days, 3 days, they put out this video. They did all these interviews. So then this is what happened with the candidate. So let's watch this.
I was elected as the first Muslim in the city of Sugar Land, and now I'm running for mayor for the city of Sugar Land. Elections start April 22nd, which is this Tuesday, and goes through April 29th. I'm hopeful that we as Muslims understand that elections are important. This is our home. This is where we live, and it's important to participate in these elections. Unfortunately, not enough people come out to vote. Less than 10% come out to vote for this election. So every vote is very important, and I humbly request that you put me in as your mayor of the city of Sugar Land on May 3rd. Thank you. Good office.
Shame on you for asking for our vote. What you've done.
You're an Israeli.
Outside. Stop talking. We'll escort you outside. We'll escort you with the police. This is the house of Allah. Go, go. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, so then this is what happened outside with that sister and the police.
Yeah. Is somebody asking me to leave? Somebody videotaped an ISGH, a lifetime member of ISGH.
They want you on the property.
Ooh, we need to know. We're not leaving until today. Who's the AD? I would like, unless you are going to arrest me.
No, that's fine. That's fine, that's fine. She will leave it, she will leave it.
They just said they won't leave.
It's okay, no, she will leave.
Are you gonna leave?
She will
Are you
leave.
gonna leave?
Yeah, she will leave it. Please. Yes, she will. Sister, this is what you said.
I'm the management. I didn't say anything. It's unnecessary. I didn't say arrest her.
I didn't. You don't have to tell me to arrest her. I don't need to. Yeah.
Well, I'm one of the management here.
Okay, well, someone else told him.
Well, he's not a manager. Yes. I got a fix.
Can you call my mom's phone?
Ask her to speak. You asked her about the property.
Are you asking me to
We need to get the policy.
She didn't say anything.
She's in the booth. Yeah, we'll have to do it. Let's have the candidates. We're in the person who called candidates every day.
She just came when they handcuffed her. She wasn't
We need to get the policy.
She didn't do anything. It was me. It was me that did something.
How many times did I tell her I'm going to get the policy? How many times did I just say, when you get the policy, but you're continuously...
Yeah, it's quite humiliating. This whole thing is so humiliating. So they made a petition, demand for accountability and transparency after shameful events at this masjid. Dear Masjid leadership and ISGH board of directors, we are writing today as deeply disappointed members of this community. What took place at the masjid was not only shameful, but it was an affront to the very values this sacred space is supposed to uphold: truth, justice, safety, and respect. Masjid Sabrin has been a pillar of this community and beloved to all who attend. Many positive changes over the years have led it to become home for a growing young community. So I wonder what positive changes they're referring to. So let us be absolutely clear. The events that unfolded today were not just a misstep. They're a betrayal of the trust this community places in its leadership. The use of police to handcuff a Muslim sister protesting against giving this platform to a soft Zionist and brother Fuad Kochinawala, threatening a protesting 11-year-old with arrest, is unacceptable. Threatening arrest and intimidation of a child are the direct tactics of the IDF. In order to restore this trust and move forward in the right direction, we demand the following: a public apology to Sister Amna Ishaq from the entire administration, a public apology from Fuad Kochinawala to the 11-year-old boy he threatened with arrest, both inside and outside the masjid. All people complicit in these incidents need to immediately step down. A town hall with the masjid community members to discuss these events and answer the community's rightful questions. A mayoral candidate forum with Q&A from the public, which allows all candidates to present their views fairly so the community can be informed and make wise decisions. ISGH adopt new or revised bylaws regarding political speeches at the masjid and members of administration endorsing those who are running for office. ISGH adopt a permanent pro-Palestinian and anti-Zionist policy or position in collaboration with the American Muslims for Palestine and other Palestinian groups. The above policy and bylaws are to get feedback from the community via open forum or voting. Furthermore, we need transparency in the following matters. Do you intend to give a platform to anyone and everyone? Obviously not. Who decides which candidates get a platform at this masjid? We demand transparency. Who makes these decisions? What are the criteria? Is it political alignment, personal relationships, or outside pressure? Spoiler alert, it's all three. Furthermore, if the mic is open to those who oppose our community's interests and don't stand with Palestine, as Noshad has done several times in city council, then it should also be open to those who dissent. It should be the congregation's right to heckle, question, and challenge. Oh, is there a right to heckle now? Can we heckle people in the masjid? Who exactly are we allowed to heckle, and who's allowed to heckle? Number 2, who called the police and gave the orders to handcuff Sister Amina? Several brothers in leadership spoke with aggression and hostility. Will there be a reprimand or training for this? We need to bring in some social workers to train the Muslims, the Muslim men who don't know how to handle the situation. So as you can see, it's hard to sympathize, for me at least, with any side of this. Obviously, I think it's disgusting that they would try to arrest this Muslim sister or put her in handcuffs. At the same time, I'm not so sympathetic to these types of Muslim feminist activists. I agree, it's great to have pro-Palestinian protest, anti-Zionist protest. It's great. I'm not a medkhali. I'm not one of these Wahhabis who says, oh, protest is haram. There should be no protest. But there are conditions. There are rules to protest. One of the rules is that you don't put Muslim women in danger. You don't mix. The genders shouldn't be mixing. You shouldn't have women aggressively leading and shouting and showing themselves. Like this is contrary to Islamic principles. But you can still protest. Where are the men? Why is it just these hijabi Muslimas, these who are often feminists, who are at the front? And this is the disaster. Like this is the cycle that happens every single time when it comes to pro-Palestine activism, is that you have a bunch of liberals, leftist, progressives leading these protests, and then they will lead the protests, and so many Muslims will be supportive of that, and they will start to align more and more with these leftists, with these progressives, with these feminists, with these pro-LGBT activists, and then that affects the community in that direction. And it's more dangerous than, imagine if these protesters were some other orientation, like let's say they are Confucius Chinese. Like that's not much of a danger for Muslims to fall into Confucianism, for example. Oh, I'm allying with the Confucianists, therefore, as a Muslim, I'm going to be more inclined to accept the teachings of Confucius over Islam. But when it comes to allying with leftist LGBT in this kind of way, there's more of a danger because that's the cultural push, is liberalism and feminism. That's already the tide of the culture, the dominant culture in the world and the West is this kind of leftist liberalism, feminism, pro-LGBT, whatever. And there's no lines. There is no distinctions. So when you have a sister like this, Sister Amina, if you go to her page, if you go to her activism, it's full of this kind of woke feminist stuff. She's promoting it. So here, for example, this is what she posts on her own Instagram. Giving a elbow bump to this congressman, Al Green. So Congressman Al Green, he's a pro-Palestine congressman, one of the very few. He's one of the very few that will not support certain Zionist measures coming through Congress, bills coming through Congress. This is Al Green. So that's great. Okay, do you have to fist bump him or elbow bump him? And then post it on, and then you're posting on Instagram like you're proud of it. And oh, do you recognize this guy in the background? Who's this guy in the background? Oh, it's that same imam at that masjid who was threatening to call the police on me. What a small world, isn't it? Small world. Remember from that Sohaib Webb interaction? So here, what is she saying? Hold on. Oh, volume. I don't know why it's not playing for me. Let's see. 1 second. Anyway, I don't know what she's saying, but you can go if you're so interested. But yeah, the point is that these are just a bunch of feminist activists. And they'll use this incident as much as it's unjustified what the masjid did to her, the masjid board or whatever, as much as it's unjustified what they did to her, that's going to be used to further push these figures, these activists, into leadership roles of influence at these masajid to push more feminism, to push more leftism, progressivism. We don't need that. Like, these masajid are already have compromised on all of these issues, and the Muslim community is suffering. Muslim men are suffering. You can't have a khatib go to one of these masajid and speak on the mimbar about Muslim modesty, haya. It's not allowed. It's like explicitly against the khutbah policy of ISGH. You can't shame women into wearing hijab and being modest. That's shaming. It's not allowed. You can't do a khutbah on the hijab at ISGH. You can't do a khutbah on LGBT at ISGH. You will be barred from giving khutbah. You will be banned because you spoke about this topic. And guess what? If you're a khatib, like they have a khatib circuit, like it's a list of approved khatibs who give khutbah, and they rotate through these 20 different masajid, every Friday giving a khutbah at a different masjid. If you are on this list, you can't speak on certain topics. But also, if in your private life you get divorced, your wife divorces you, and she claims that you abused her, it's not proven, there's no actual charges against you, there's nothing it's just accusations, they will take you off of the speaking circuit. You're a misogynist. Like, you're abusive towards women. We're gonna put you on probation. You know, if you're pretty good on feminism in general, but your ex-wife complained about you, so you're on probation. For 1 year, you can't give the khutbah. For 2 years, you can't give the khutbah. For 6 months, you can't give the khutbah. That's the way that ISGH controls what's taught on the mimbar of these masajid. You can't, but now we need more of that because of this incident that's causing outrage. And you can see from the petition that they put out. That petition already has 2,000 signatures. Did you see on the screen here? 2,025 signatures. And people are outraged. They're outraged that the sister was arrested. We need more. We have too much misogyny in the Muslim community. We need more sisters on the board. We need more. The wrong solution to the problem. The correct solution is, where are the men speaking out? Why do you even have these mayoral candidates talking on the mimbar, coming to the masjid, promoting some Ismaili coming and asking for your votes, begging for your votes? So all you can do is shake your head. So this sister put out a list of the Zionism of what I guess they call it soft Zionism of this candidate, Noshad Kermali. He stood up on October 17th. He stood up to pray for Israel. while showing disregard and even anger towards Palestinian lives for the last 16 months. Okay, so he's praying for Israel. He allowed the mayor to publicly post that Sugarland stands with Israel and did nothing to stop it. You know, why not? Because he's on the council. He wants to be mayor. He's on the council. And the council and the mayor are all these Zionists pro-Israel. He's second in motions to silence pro-Palestinian and Muslim peace activists during public comments at city council meetings. The Sugarland city manager admitted to our coalition that Kermali requested police protection before speaking to 2 hijabi Muslim women last March, and so forth. He attended and hosted a vigil for Ukraine when that war began. It's interesting. The city council authorized law enforcement infiltration of our WhatsApp groups where officers pretended to be Muslim to monitor and intimidate activists. So I don't know the details of this, but this sounds explosive. How are law enforcement spying on private citizens, on private WhatsApp groups? Like, what kind of program is this? Is this with the FBI? Working with city council? So you're bringing such people to get the votes of the Muslims. The Muslims put them in office, and then these people in office allow law enforcement to spy on Muslims, to spy on the Muslim community. That's the way, that's a basic summary in a nutshell of Muslim masjid politics since 9/11. These masajid collaborating with law enforcement, but pretending like they're supporting law enforcement or they're supporting the Muslim community. And guess what? The law enforcement is supporting, and the law enforcement agencies, they're all Zionists. They're all filled with these Jewish Zionists who hate Muslims. Offered prayers for Israel and posted public support from the city itself. They refused to acknowledge Palestinian suffering and silenced anyone asking for prayers or justice for Palestine. Naushad Kermali is complicit in all of this. We have more than enough evidence, inshallah, and Allah will bring justice to those who harm the ummah. Yeah, so this sister is saying the right things, okay? She's not always hitting the mark. And obviously she's pushing leftism, wokeism. So there are problems with that. There are problems with the form of protesting. But substantively, this guy should be nowhere near a masjid. This guy should be nowhere near a masjid, and Muslims should not be voting for him. But unfortunately, many of them will. It's a scandal. Then the masjid put out a statement as well. I mean, it's the typical type of statement that says absolutely nothing. Statement from Brand Lane Islamic Center, which is the masjid. We are deeply saddened and concerned about the events that took place at our masjid following Jummah prayer. An unfortunate incident occurred outside the men's prayer hall near the water fountain where a sister was handcuffed by a police officer while protesting the presence of a mayoral candidate, Naushad Kermali. We want to be clear. The masjid does not condone or support the handcuffing or physical restraint of any individual peacefully expressing their views. Our masjid is a sacred space, and we remain firmly committed to ensuring it as a place of dignity, safety, and mutual respect, where all individuals feel welcomed, valued, and heard. Oh, really? Okay, I guess I can go there and start talking about feminism and men's rights and trying to red pill the masjid goers on these issues. I'm sure I'll be welcomed. While the presence of law enforcement during Jummah is a routine for traffic control and community safety, this specific action was neither expected nor appropriate. We are currently conducting a full review of the incident to understand what occurred and why. Once all facts are known, we will take appropriate and principled action in alignment with our Islamic values and community responsibilities. We extend our sincerest apologies to the sister and her family for the distress caused by this incident. We pray for healing, understanding, and continued unity within our community. So this kind of damage control PR statement that doesn't acknowledge the core issue, like why are you having such a person speak at the masjid in the first place? Why do you have political campaigning at the masjid in the first place? That's not going to be addressed. That issue is not going to be addressed. The issue that one of your main supporters, financial backers, who is standing there at the front of the masjid, has all kinds of corrupt, lifestyle. Just look at him. How is he in a position to dictate to the masjid community what they should do, who should speak, when they should speak? That's a scandal in and of itself. That's not going to be addressed. So you have these businessmen, they have money, and they think that they own the masajid. And they pretty much do, because people who know better don't stand up to them. The people who know better don't stand up to them. Or if you can't stand up to them, at least don't support them. Why are you going to these masajid and spending, as a collective, as a community, millions of dollars in funding, constantly funding these masajid? They're constantly fundraising. They're constantly expanding. They're constantly building more buildings. Why are you donating all of this money? Individual families are donating tens of thousands of dollars to these masajid. Why? You can pool your money towards a better cause, to a more Islamic cause. You don't have to agree to this state of affairs. You can create your own masjid community. And there are brothers, mashallah, that I know, great brothers who are doing this. They're tired of it. We're gonna build our own masjid. And they're going through the process of doing that, mashallah. And they want to do things the right way. They want to build a masjid that does the right thing, stands for the right principles. So it's possible, especially in the United States, where there is a lot of money. You can fund a lot of big projects that will do a great deal to help the ummah locally and globally. But instead, we're stuck sitting in the same masjid that's so clear the level of corruption, and you're not doing anything to change it. And it's so bad that some random sister activist has to come and start screaming or yelling and protesting to such an extent that she almost gets arrested. This is a disgrace. It's a humiliation. It's a scandal. And it's just nonstop corruption with ISGH, the Islamic Society of Greater Houston, the ones that are coordinating these masajid, the speakers at these masajid. Every year they have some kind of scandal because they're so corrupt. And this is not even the only scandal from 2025. In Ramadan, they were having iftar. They're one of the main sponsors of a Houston Muslim iftar that was featuring John Whitmire, the mayor of Houston, overall Houston, coming and speaking, who's a hardened Zionist, like a very clear-cut Zionist. Pray for Israel, destroy Hamas, destroy Palestine. These terrorists, it doesn't matter how many kids you kill. I don't know if he literally said that, but that's what all of these Zionists have in common. Like, that's the subtext of your support for Israel. It doesn't matter how many Palestinian children have to die to make Israel safe. That's what all Zionists basically hold. In the past, you could have been a Zionist in the sense that you said that, well, I'm a Zionist not because I think the Palestinians should be wiped out. I'm a Zionist because I think that we need a two-state solution. We need to have Israel and we need to have independent Palestine. I'm in favor of a two-state solution, but the Jews have a right to that land. Okay, you're a Zionist, and that's unacceptable, ultimately. But that's not the same as the Zionism that we have today. Zionism has transformed to becoming as many Palestinians as needed to be killed in order to secure Israel. That's what Zionism means now. And there's no more gray area. There's no more room to interpret Zionism as any other thing. And that's why you have, whenever there's any kind of Zionist who comes out and says, yeah, I think that the Israeli army needs to pull back a little bit and show some restraint. Someone like Bernie Sanders, for example, who's a pure Zionist, comes and says, yeah, I think there needs to be some restraint on killing civilians. Zionists will say, oh, you're Hamas. You are nothing but Hamas. You support Hamas by saying that we shouldn't blow up as many Palestinians as needed. So Zionists themselves have shifted things to such an extreme that if you are still in 2025 standing with Israel or claiming that you're a Zionist or that you support Israel, that should be and must be interpreted that you believe that as many Palestinian children as need to be killed as possible for the security of Israel, then so be it. That's what it means to be a Zionist in 2025. So when you have, there should be absolutely no room, absolutely no tolerance for any Muslim to have any association with any Zionist. There can be, this was the case before October 7th for sure, but now it's more than a betrayal. Like, this is beyond betrayal. This is the worst kind of malicious nifaq, hypocrisy that you can have, given the extent of the slaughter and the killing of Palestinians that is happening for you in 2025, post October 7th, post hundreds of thousands of Palestinians being slaughtered. You still are willing to sit next to a Zionist or to have a platform with a Zionist? There can be no excuse for that. There can be no space for that. Yet you have ISGH overlooking 20 multi-million-dollar masajid in Houston that serve maybe several 100,000 Muslims in the Houston area. And Houston, by the way, is the third largest city in America, behind New York and LA. It's about neck and neck with Chicago in terms of size. So it's not a small city. This is a major city. You're having an iftar with John Whitmire, the mayor. And let's look at this iftar. It's nauseating. This was an article in the Houston Chronicle, the major newspaper of Houston. Houston's Muslim community split on Whitmire's involvement in annual dinner. The Islamic Society of Greater Houston's participation in the iftar has, quote, disappointed Muslims citywide. And this was like a protest that some of the Muslims did. They wore like gloves with red and they like stood up. Like, this is the blood of the Zion or of the Palestinians. You have blood on your hands, ISGH. They protested this at this iftar. So you can read this article. It gives you some of the details. Many Houston Muslims condemned this iftar. Members of the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, expressed feeling let down. Even mosque leaders voiced their opposition. They're opposed to this iftar. Why? Because you have John Whitmire, this Zionist. He's a Democrat, by the way. John Whitmire is a Democrat. He's not a Republican. He's a Democrat and he is pro-Israel. So they're boycotting this iftar. In a metro boasting the largest Muslim community in Texas, the ISGH decision to sponsor and participate in the 26th annual Ramadan dinner with Mayor John Whitmire this Sunday has been met with anger, confusion, and disappointment. Despite the mix of reaction, critics have asked versions of the same pressing question: how could the ISGH, the city's largest Muslim organization, which oversees more than 20 mosques in the metro, agree to join the dinner featuring Whitmire as the keynote speaker when he apparently hasn't fostered a relationship with a majority of Houston's Muslim community? That's not the issue. The issue is his support for Israel. But interesting how the Houston Chronicle editorializes this to whitewash it. I'm shocked that ISGH is continuing to platform and honor the mayor, Salima Gul, a 42-year-old Muslim who attends one of the ISGH mosques in Houston, said in a phone interview Friday, the Muslim community is feeling secondhand embarrassment. Like, it's embarrassment. I think there's more extreme anger and outrage. So maybe they have censored or they didn't publish this sister's full sentiments. But rightfully, she's angry. She's upset. This is a betrayal. The remarks come after more than 40 Muslim and pro-Palestine leaders and groups, including ISGH and CARE, boycotted the 25th annual Ramadan dinner in March 2024 following Whitmire's refusal to call for a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. So last year, 2024, ISGH did refuse to participate in the iftar because the mayor refused to call for a ceasefire. Then in 2025, this past year, they sponsor it and they participate. That's the kind of leadership we have. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. You can read this. And then you can actually see like highlights of this iftar. And just warning, I didn't censor, I didn't have time to go and censor all of the non-hijabis in this, because it's filled. Like, this is just outrageous. It's like a club. Is this club iftar? Like, is this club Ramadan? I thought this is Ramadan, this is iftar. Like, what the heck is going on? So putting aside the alliance with Zionists and inviting Zionists as your speakers, like putting that aside, like this is problematic for multiple reasons. Let's see what this is the highlights. 24 minutes of highlights. We're not gonna watch all of it. Oh wow, it's so loud. Yeah, look at this club music. Ramadan, guys. It's a red carpet affair. They're not ashamed. Like, they hired a professional videographer to come produce this highlight video, photographer, videographer. Like, oh, a state representative, multiple state representatives are here. The mayor is here. Oh, look at this. It's just a cesspool. Like, this is a cesspool. And
you all to this 26th
this is the MC. This is the host. This woman plastered in makeup. She's the host. Then you have Quran recitation. Oh, that really makes it Islamic. That makes it an Islamic event. You have some Quran recitation.
Night and the dawn prayer. For certainly the dawn prayer is witnessed by angels.
Oh, say, can you see?
Oh, look, standing for the Star-Spangled Banner. Oh, let's all. Did they do this before they broke their fast or after? I can't really tell. Or maybe this is the adhan. This is the adhan for, oh, the Star-Spangled Banner has been recited by our strong female singer. Time to eat. Time to have our dates. We follow the sunnah and we have dates here. Some delicious, juicy dates that we break our sunnah, break our fast with according to the sunnah. Like, this is a mockery of deen. Like, subhanallah. Anyway, I myself haven't watched through this, but yeah, this is like American Islam. This is American Islam. This is what we're dealing with. There's the mayor, Democratic mayor. Oh, even the governor made a statement. Greg Abbott, the one who is constantly supporting Israel and saying that we have to crack down on anti-Israel protests.
Greg Abbott. I'm proud to join you at this celebration in the great state of Texas and around the world. Here in Texas, we are proud that people from diverse cultural backgrounds can observe their holidays in peace. Our country's founders prioritized religious freedom and made these celebrations possible. I thank Texas's faith groups for their continued service to the poor and vulnerable in their communities. May peace and harmony continue to reign in our state, and may you enjoy your feasting after those long weeks of fasting and prayer. I wish each of you a blessed Ramadan.
Yay! Oh, the governor acknowledged us. Oh.
Please join me in giving a heartfelt welcome to the Honorable Congressman Al Green.
Uh-oh. Well, this is Al Green, the same congressman that the activist was elbow bumping with. So what the heck? I guess he's not as principled as we would like. But compared to people in Congress, like, it's a pretty low bar. Yeah, so this is a cesspool. I don't know who this guy is. I'm sure they had a very delicious meal. I wonder if even Palestine was mentioned at any point in the program. Somehow I doubt it. Pose with the mayor. Get your photos. Get your selfies with the mayor. Anyway. Yeah, so this is what we're dealing with as a community in America. Part of the secularization agenda, like how you secularize any particular community of Muslims in the world, actually, is you have them prioritize local politics as opposed to international politics. So get Muslims in the United States to stop caring about what's going on in Palestine. Get them to stop caring about the whole conflict, Israel-Palestine conflict. Have them prioritize their local network so that you'll have events with Zionists. You'll have events and collaboration with Zionist organizations or Zionist-aligned politicians. Prioritize that over larger international concerns. That's how you defeat political Islam. That's how you defeat this kind of larger Muslim interests in a global ummah that fights for each other and protects each other. That's how you divide and conquer. And it happens not only in the United States, it happens throughout the Muslim world. And this is why they promote an idea of American Islam. We care about American Islam, our particular expression of Islam with our culture. And American Islam means that we're not uncomfortable if a non-Muslim woman goes in front of us after Friday prayers to talk about her mayoral candidacy and ask for our votes. We're not uncomfortable. That would be a scandal in Pakistan and Bangladesh and Nigeria, but for us, that's completely fine because that's American Islam. That's American Islam. Like, that's what is promoted by these compassionate imams. Make no mistake that this is all related. This is all part of the same project. Okay, guys, so we've been talking for over 2 hours now. I want to look at your super chats. I wanted to comment on Jordan Peterson as well. Let's see, depending on what the super chats are, if there's a lot or we might not get time to go over Jordan Peterson, but I want to see if you have any comments. Soon, pole dancing lessons in masajid. A'udhu billah. Hopefully not. But I mean, this, you can see the logic that could be used for anything at this point. What will be left of Islam in 50 years if this does not stop? I mean, Islam in America, like, what will be left? That's the question that I keep asking. Thankful to be living in Europe, not gonna lie. Is it really that different in Europe? Like, is it really that much better in Europe? You have plenty of these same trends in Europe. It depends on where in Europe also. Like, France is very different than Belgium, is very different from Austria, is very different from the UK. So there are trends in different European countries. Yeah, you guys are shocked about this. Like, you're shocked. Hey, bro, Hassan, I believe that this is one of our, you should be a moderator, brother. Maybe I can add you. But yeah, what the heck? What the heck? What the hell is this? Yeah, welcome to America. This is what we have to deal with. You come to America, you want to go like for iftar, and they're like singing the Star Spangled Banner. Oh, say, can you see? And you're going and you go outside and there are like sisters protesting and shouting, and it's a complete mess. You have Ismailis like giving you a lecture after the khutbah. I mean, these are the problems. Like, how does it get, just reflect, like, how does it get to this kind of state? Like the Muslim community here. I'll tell you exactly how this happens. No one is speaking out. No one is criticizing this. All of the things that you've just seen in very few clips that I've shown you, it has gotten to this state because no one is speaking out and saying this is wrong, we are not going to support this, and we're going to try to shut it down. No one is saying this, right? And the compassionate imams who are taken as the religious authorities, oh, the imam, the scholar, the sheikh, the shuyukh, the a'imma, they don't say anything about, they don't criticize this. You think that they're going to criticize this iftar? They're going to criticize having these mayoral candidates come and speak? You think they're going to raise a peep about that? No, they won't. Why? Because they won't be invited to speak at those masajid anymore. They're going to be banned from speaking from those masajid, number one. Number two, they might be accused of being a misogynist. They might be accused of being extreme. The only safe thing that they can speak about now, because there's overwhelming communal support, is the issue of Palestine. So they might criticize that guy, that council member, Nashad Kermali. Oh, he has some Zionist sympathies or Zionist connections. That's fine to criticize, but nothing beyond that. Nothing beyond that. They're cowards. They're cowards. They know. Maybe actually some of these newer compassionate imams, they don't even know. They're so ignorant. But they know that this is wrong. What's happening to the Muslims in the United States, this is a disastrous trajectory. This is a disastrous trajectory. 2025, who knows? Allah knows what it's going to be in 2030. In less than 5 years, what's going to be the state of the Muslims in America? Only Allah knows, but the trajectory is very clear. I guarantee you that the amount of gender mixing, tabarruj, the amount of pandering, like shameless pandering to politicians, who, by the way, not all of them, but many of them are Zionists, outright Zionists. And ISGH, the main masjid, is sponsoring it and co-signing it. That's happening now. Imagine what's going to be the case in 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years, or 10 years when your children, my children, come of age. That's the clear trajectory. Everyone who's here, who has any basic knowledge, knows what's happening, but no one is talking about it. And even you go to the masajid, where they do know better, they do understand that these things are a problem, they don't raise a peep either. They don't raise a peep either. They don't say anything. Oh, that's not correct adab. Like, you're going to criticize another masjid, you're going to criticize ISGH, you're going to criticize. That's not correct adab. We all have to be nice and friendly, and that's hikmah, brother. That's hikmah. We can't criticize. Why do we want to criticize? This is like being a khariji. This is like, oh, you're being too strict. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, these are clear red lines that are being crossed, that are being destroyed, and you're a khariji for saying this is bad? People are so... And then, by the way, the real kharijis, the real Wahhabis, we're not going to talk about that either. Not going to talk about that either. So, is a time of great confusion, as the Prophet ﷺ told us. As we approach the end of times, confusion is going to increase. The people who are the most dishonest are going to be taken as honest people, or they're going to be trusted. And the most trustworthy people are going to be called liars. They're going to be called betrayers. So, do you see my pain? Do you feel my pain now? Fraction of the pain that I have to deal with. People will say we need to fund and elect Muslim politicians in order to sway political action in the Middle East, but clearly they might still be Zionists. Like, yeah, show me an effective Muslim politician. I'm still waiting to see one. Out of all these Muslim politicians that we're supposed to vote for, like, who is really the champion? Like, the bar is so low. Like, oh, just don't say that you love Israel and then we'll support you. Like, that's pretty much the bar at this point. So the whole idea of Muslims supporting Western politicians, that case has collapsed a long time ago. That case collapsed with people like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and all. Like, even if they are pro-Palestine, at what cost, first of all? And number two, what are they actually accomplishing for Palestine? It's hard to understand, like, what is really the benefit that we're getting from someone like Ilhan Omar or Bernie Sanders or whoever. What is the muslah? Brother Daniel is a passionate misogynist. Oh, thank you. Thanks for noticing. Brother Suleiman. It's a good compliment. I think the secularization of Muslims in America will be much more rapid than Muslims in UK or EU. Do you agree? Yeah, definitely the UK, but in the EU it depends. Like, some patches, some of the countries, the Muslims there are very secularized already, more than in America. From what I can tell, I could be wrong. I think the EU is too diverse. You can't really generalize the entirety of the EU, but the UK, yeah, I agree. They're less liberal, but the secularization is still happening in the UK as well. It's just not as obvious because a lot of the outward displays of Islam are abided by, which is great. You see much more beards, you see much more women in niqab and hijab, etc., in long flowing clothes. You have more halal businesses, restaurants, etc. So the outward trappings of Islam, which are very important, but there are still, unfortunately, a lot of concessions made to the secular state in the UK, and I was shocked to see it when I was visiting there a couple of years ago. Hello, Zoomer. How's it going, bro? Good to see you. You were completely vindicated on Syria. Zoomos's recent tweet is too funny. Did you have a recent tweet on Syria? Yeah, so we can talk about Syria. Yeah, I think I have been vindicated on a lot of what's happening in Syria because the recent news came out. If we switch gears a little bit, even though it's still under the bigger theme of principle versus practicality, you had the new government in Syria arresting Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the group in Syria, their leaders have been arrested. So why is the Syrian government arresting Palestinian resistance? Why? It's because they are playing ball with the United States. They want sanctions relief for their country, so they're cracking down on the Palestinian groups in the country. So this is a shocking betrayal. And am I convinced that this means that Syria is going to be like Jordan 2.0, just another vassal of the United States and Israel? No, I'm not completely convinced. I still think the jury is out on what is going to happen with Syria. What is Ahmed Shara Jolani going to really be about in the long term? But this is bad news. This is extremely bad news that he is cracking down on Palestinian groups, Palestinian military resistance groups. Why? Because that's the most that's the easiest target. And you start with the easiest target. Oh, okay, this is a militant group, so we have to arrest them. We can't allow this organization to exist, even though it's Palestinian resistance. We can't allow this organization to exist. You start with that group. But you think that the US is going to be satisfied with just arresting them? No, they're going to keep making demands for the government to crack down on other political groups, other Islamist groups. So a lot of people like me have been excited, have been thrilled that, okay, Assad, that brutal dictator, tyrant, has been deposed. Great news. That and a lot of the political prisoners have been released. That's great news. And great news that the new Syrian government is allowing Muslims to gather in masajid and have durus, have halaqat. You have a lot of the traditional scholars returning to Syria. You have a lot of them who have been released from jail and now they're preaching. You have khutbahs talking about jihad in the masajid in Syria, and they're not being cracked down on. So when was the last time that you had in the Middle East, in the Arab world, a khutbah on the topic of jihad? That's happening. That's happening now in New Syria. That's great news. That's great news. If that can continue to be allowed without crackdown. But the thing is that there are patterns. And there is a history that we have seen repeat itself over and over and over again. Yeah, there is some tolerance and some freedom to preach jihad, preach political Islam, preach Sharia, preach Khilafah, preach a resurgence of Islam as a political force. They allow that initially, but then they start cracking down. Then the pressure from the United States and Israel increases, and then they start cracking down. They start putting people into prisons. They start controlling the khutbahs in the masajid. They start closing down the masajid and only opening them up for prayers. The masjid is only open for prayer time, and then the doors are closed so that you can't have any halaqas, you can't have any durus, you can't have any classes. That's what happens in the majority of the Muslim world or the Arab world. But now Syria has allowed that, but then how long will that actually last? And the fact that they're arresting Palestinian resistance organizations, this is a huge red flag. This is a very bad sign. So you have people, they are these kinds of nationalists, these Arab supremacists who have been campaigning against me, saying that I'm an Iranian shill, I'm an Assadist, etc., trying to smear my name because I wasn't getting on board the new government Jolani bandwagon and saying, oh, this is the best thing since Salahuddin. He's the next Salahuddin. He's going to go, and after taking Damascus, he's going to, next is Jerusalem. This is what people were saying. So I was not buying the hype. I was highly suspicious of Jolani. Why is the Western Zionist media praising him and giving him a huge platform to talk about how he's a reformed jihadi? There are some red flags here. Then, after a couple of months, you have Jolani making a deal, Ahmed Shara making a deal with the Kurds and trying to consolidate the country, trying to unify the different factions within the country. You had an uprising of these Alawis trying to do a coup, and he was able to stop that coup, and he was able to stabilize the country. These are good signs. He's making closer relations with Turkey, with Erdogan. These are great signs. And the Zionists were getting angrier and angrier and angrier. These are good signs. And I promoted it on Haqiqatjou. I explained that these are great signs, and this gives me hope that we're going to see a new Syria that will be different from Jordan or some of these client states of Israel. But then we get bad news. So it's like a roller coaster ride. There are highs and there are lows, and we don't really know where this train is going to lead. But I am vindicated in this, in being cautious. In being cautious and not being dazed and confused by slogans, by cheap promises. Let's see what actually pans out. And the signs that we're seeing are not positive signs. There are many negative things, and it doesn't help to tell someone who criticizes the Shara and the new Syrian government, it doesn't help to tell them to shut up, just trust the plan. If you criticize, then that means you're a Shia, Assadist, Rafidi. It doesn't help. Like, we can't have criticism. And again, this goes back to the black and white mindset. Either Jolani is the next Salahuddin who's going to bring liberation to all of the Middle East, or he is a Zionist plant. In reality, it's probably somewhere in between. It's probably somewhere in between there. And we have to just wait and see. We have to just look at the evidence and be able to call it like we see it. So as long as you have that kind of approach, you'll always be vindicated. You'll always be vindicated because it's a rational approach. Yeah, so thanks for your super chat, brother Zuma. Not Zumas, Halal Zoomer. Where is my MIAW documentary, Habibi? Inshallah, it's coming. It's coming, I promise. It's gonna be good. We had to add a whole new section to it. That's the thing. Like, when you do a project like this and you're doing a lot of research, literally hundreds of hours of research, like, you're learning new things, and you learn some shocking things that you didn't include in the first recording that you did. But you have to think, well, should I include it? Like, should we just go and add a whole, like, additional 15 minutes or 5 minutes or 20 minutes? And you think, yeah, it's worth it. Let's delay the documentary another week, another 2 weeks to add this section because it's so important to understanding Wahhabism and Ibn Abdul Wahhab. It's so shocking, the kind of fatwa. Like, we're discovering fatwa and statements from Wahhabis that you would not believe. They're going to absolutely shock you and disgust you. This is who they call Shaykhul Islam, by the way. You're going to be shocked and disgusted and blown away by this documentary, inshallah. So stay tuned. Don't lose hope. It's coming. We're working hard on it, but we want to make it something that will last the test of time. We want to make it, it's like dropping a nuke on Wahhabism. But if you want to drop a nuke, like, that's a lot of talk. That's a lot of hype. Are we going to live up to the hype? It takes time. Wa alaikum assalam. I know this might not be directly relevant to the subject, but what are your thoughts on the book Al-Muqaddimah by Ibn Khaldun to understand politics through an Islamic lens? What aspect of politics? It's a pretty broad question. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Daniel. Great show so far. May Allah bless you. Why are Fareed and Jake still tweeting about you? I thought it was over. It's never over with Wahhabis. That's the thing. Their whole life is dedicated to me. Their whole life is dedicated to me. So it'll never be over. They can't debate me. They can't, actually address the arguments made against them by me. So they just have to cope and seethe and cry for the rest of their lives. So I hope Allah will guide them at some point, but you might be looking at another decade of them making videos about me if things continue. That's the thing about the Wahhabi Dawah, the Najdi Dawah. This is the only thing that matters. So there could be a literal genocide going on, but they'll make 10 videos about, it's this one person that doesn't have the exactly correct view on istighatha. And this person doesn't have the correct view on prostrating to graves. So we have to correct their aqidah. Aqidah is the most important thing. What's your aqidah, bro? Even if there's literally a genocide happening and Muslims are getting wiped out. Okay, yeah, here's a token video. Here's a token tweet about that. But 99% of our time is pointing out the aqidah mistakes. The aqidah mistakes of these kafir mushriks like Daniel. So this is the situation. Jawad, thank you for your super chat. Are there Alasna courses on how the US destabilized the Middle East? I'd love to learn the intricacies and be able to debate it. No, there's not a course specifically dedicated to that topic, like a historical analysis, but it's a good suggestion. Maybe in the future we could do something on that. Thank you for your super chat. Any other final comments? Does anyone else think that living in America nowadays is pretty rough? Yeah, me. It's really rough. But I've always lived in America, so I don't know how it is in other places, how it is to live in other places. So just keep that in mind. If you're in the Muslim world, do not immigrate to the West, please. Only if you are being actively bombed, you really shouldn't consider moving to the West. It is not going to be better economically for you. It might seem like it will be, but the costs, not only financially, but also spiritually, to you and your family and the future of Islam in your family, those costs are too great. Yeah, so UK, US. Thank you, brother. May Allah bless you as well. Pakistanis are dying to go to the West. Trust me, you don't want to. It's a grass is always greener situation. Okay, guys. So Oh. Another super chat. Oh, whoops. On this cat. Abdullah, that would be even weirder. I don't know what that's referring to. Jawad says, do you believe ISIS are even Muslims? I get your view on Wahhabis, but I always thought ISIS are just Israeli-funded bad PR for Muslims. Do you think they actually pray and believe in Quran and Hadith? No way. Yes, ISIS, like people who have ISIS ideology are Wahhabis. Wahhabis are Muslim. And as Muslims, they have the rights of being Muslim. We don't takfir them. But they're deviants. They're Ahlul Bid'ah. So put that point aside. Are they controlled or infiltrated by Western agencies? Absolutely. Absolutely. Those two things can be true at the same time. People think that, oh, they're either Muslim or they're just secret agents, secret infiltrators like Israelis in black masks pretending to be Muslim. And it's either one or the other. No, both can be true. You have a lot of sincere Wahhabis who are just these deviant people that are Muslim. But at the top, the people who make the decisions are infiltrated and at the controlled by these Western intelligence agencies. Both of those things can be true. And those Western intelligence agencies are non-Muslims. So this is the history of infiltrating political Islam that many intelligence agencies have done throughout history. And it's how you can discredit political Islam, by sending an agent to infiltrate any political movement like Ikhwan al-Muslimin, for example, and having this infiltrator call for terrorism. And then some confused people get mixed up with that kind of plot, and then they commit an act of terrorism against a hospital, for example, or against like a bunch of civilians. So they turn people against Ikhwan or against that political Islamist group because, oh, they committed an act of terrorism, but it was in reality a false flag. This is a repeated pattern that has been used by Israel historically. It's been used by the United States. And this is the reality of ISIS. That doesn't negate the fact that ISIS itself is a genuine Wahhabi interpretation. Wahhabis fall into generally three categories. The Madkhalis, which we talk about, the Madkhali bootlickers, the Daeshi ISIS types, which consider Ibn Abdul Wahhab their Shaykh al-Islam, and then you have the Haddadis. These three groups, they all share fundamental beliefs, the fundamental Wahhabi beliefs they all share. So someone like Farid al-Bahraini, Jake Brancatella, someone like Muhammad ibn Shamsuddin, someone like Dimishqiya, which hopefully I'll be debating soon, and Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. All of these people, Sulaiman al-Ruhaili in Medina, all of them share the Wahhabi ideology, which is deviance, which is a Khariji-like deviance that we have to deal with in this day and age. So we'll talk about it in future streams, I'm sure, and we'll talk about it in the documentary. No, we don't need to, and that's like the black and white understanding of Wahhabis as well, by the way. Like, oh, you're either a kafir or you're on the manhaj of the Salaf. Like, there's only two options. You're a kafir or you're on the manhaj of the Salaf. There's no gray area. And people fall into this. Either ISIS are Muslims or they're kafir. No, there's a in-between position. They're Ahlul Bid'ah. They have deviant views. And they're also fasiq, obviously, because they support the killing of Muslims. Just like their Shaykh Ibn Abdul Wahhab. They mass takfir the Muslims, just like their Shaykh Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. So it's deviant. The Khawarij were not takfir. The Sahaba did not takfir the Khawarij. The Khawarij takfired the Sahaba, but the Sahaba did not reciprocate. Why? And the Khawarij in the time of the Sahaba were killing the Sahaba. They're killing the Sahaba. Like what could be a crime as bad as that? But the Sahaba did not takfir the Khawarij. Okay. Dimishqi really fell from grace. Yeah, I'm gonna hopefully be debating him, inshallah. It's proposed, the debate. He just has to accept it. It's gonna be a long debate on Tawheed and Shirk. We're gonna talk about Shirk. He's called me he's basically implied that I'm a mushrik. He says I'm calling to the religion of Abu Lahab, or he said Abu Talib. I'm calling to the religion of Abu Talib, which means like Jahili Shirk. That's like a soft takfir. He calls Imam Ghazali a kafir. He does takfir of Imam Ghazali, just like his Haddadi Wahhabi brethren. So I'm going to be debating him, hopefully. Any thoughts on the terrorist quote-unquote attack in India? Seems like another false flag to spread hatred of Islam amongst Hindus and supporters by the usual suspects. Perhaps. I'm not sure. I expressed similar sentiments earlier in the stream, so you can go back and watch that. But yeah, it's very possible that's a false flag. I just don't know all the details. Not all the details have come out. But already, I know that Modi is using it to rally support for Hindutva and his political party. So it's definitely politically convenient for Modi and Hindutva. So, I mean, put 2 and 2 together. Most Wahhabis say Ghazali repented. Yeah, not Dimishqi. Dimishqiya. He says that Ghazali is a kafir, murtad. So that'll be part of the debate. Okay, guys. Really appreciate everyone tuning in to Haqiqat show. I enjoyed talking with you almost for 3 hours. It was a good show. Some of you are talking about Muhammad Hijab, the scandal with Muhammad Hijab. Ali Dawa has commented on it. I do plan on having a video on this quote-unquote scandal. And I think you'll be interested to watch that video. My comments, it will be perhaps a unique perspective on these accusations against Muhammad Hijab by a claimed ex-wife. A claimed ex-wife. She claims to be the ex-wife of Muhammad Hijab. And from all we can tell, Muhammad Hijab denies it. Denies having any kind of relation with this woman. But she says that he abused me, he took advantage of me, he made promises that he did not fulfill. Who's in the right, who's in the wrong? And now you have these Islamophobe haters like David Wood, Apus, all of these losers piling on to Muhammad Hijab saying, see, Muhammad Hijab doesn't respect women. Muhammad Hijab is not a woman respecter. He's a woman abuser. He's a misogynist. And Ali Dawa has made a couple of videos. So it's a disturbing situation. People are taking advantage of it. But how do we understand? How should we understand it? How should we understand misyar marriage? Misyar marriage. What is this? So inshallah, I'm writing a video right now for for addressing this issue. Hopefully it'll come out next week, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, that's our show. Thank you for paying attention. Don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter. The link is in the description below. And you can go to MuslimSkeptic.com and support the channel. Maybe you don't want to give a super chat, but you want to support the channel. Go to MuslimSkeptic.com. You can give us $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month. Why not? That supports, because there are costs that we have for the research that we do to put on these shows. We have to keep the lights on. We have to pay our researchers, our graphic designers, our video editors. These are costs that are thousands of dollars every month. So we need your support. We have a team that is obviously working very hard on all aspects of Haqiqatjou, on Muslim Skeptic. So you can support us. If you appreciate the analysis, if you appreciate the dawah that we have, the perspective that we bring, hopefully you think it's a unique perspective that you're not able to find anywhere else. If you value that, then show that you value that by supporting us. That's an opportunity for you to support our work and our dawah, and you can do that through MuslimSkeptic.com. If you were a supporter in the past, you were contributing on a monthly basis, you will have to check if your donation is still recurring. Sometimes it gets canceled. Sometimes your credit card is canceled, or your debit card is canceled, or expires rather. So you can check if it's still active. You can check your credit card statements and see last month was there any donation made, and if not, you can resubscribe to support our work on a recurring basis. That helps us a lot with our costs. Again, which is thousands of dollars a month that we spend. Okay, brothers and sisters, Jazakumullah khairan. Inshallah, we'll see you on the next Haqiqatjou episode that we will have for you, and more videos are going to be on the channel as well. Until next time, I will see you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.